After what genuinely feels like 15 years, we've finally gone past Natlin and arrived at the new region, and despite this quest being extremely fun, tightly paced, and very plot-heavy, there are still aspects that I felt were missing during this quest. This is Nod Krai, a region that improved so much, but misses something that made Natlin so great for me. Nod Krai's beginning is very slow, and a lot of it is exposition and character setups, and it's here we immediately see the different direction Nod Krai takes when it comes to its story quest. This is a quest that closely relates to the Traveler as a character. Now, I've said over and over in the past how boring I think the Traveler is, so this is very much a welcome inclusion. The very first thing we get to do when we set foot onto this island is not only a monologue from the Traveler, but a voiced line too? We are being spoiled today with this character writing. Not only here too, Traveler throughout feels much akin to the Trailblazer, where they have snarky remarks and their own personality shining through their chosen dialogue. This is genuinely the most human I've ever seen the Traveler act. Rather than being a blank canvas we can put ourselves into, we got someone who's got their own story and lore to tell.
아닙니다. 사과는 제가 해야죠. 복도에 멍하니 서 있으면 안 됐어요.
My biggest problem with Genshin introductions is that they're very plain. With Kachina, there was so much inner depth in her introduction, and Mulani's introduction spoke to her role in the story. I want an introduction to tell me a lot about the character, and to tell me something about the story that they're about to go through as a character. Ai-No is the biggest disappointment and the one whom I have the biggest issue with personally. She's humorous, and she and Inefa's dynamic got a chuckle out of me, sure, but beyond that, there's nothing else I could say that I liked about Ai-No. Flynn's and Lauma, however, are the complete opposite of Ai-No. Lauma specifically. Her role in the story is almost immediately established, following the ways of the Frostmoon Scorns, if I'm saying that right. A figure that understands and seems pretty committed to the compassion and blessings of the Moon Goddess. With Flynn's, we have the setup of something interesting about him, that being the lamp that he's holding, which is enough to get the Traveler's attention. Something that really doesn't happen unless it's some sort of artifact or fashion of power. So one character introduction introduces mystery, and the other sets up the character. This was the second best part of the quest for me, but also the most disappointing. We quickly arrive at Hisei Island to speak with Llama and try see if there's any way to see what happened to the Traveler's spaceship. And not only do we get interesting lore for Genshin's world, which is usually spread out and doesn't feel like exposition dumping, we also get a scene that seems almost inconsequential at first. It's Luma going to check up on the condition of a young girl. What's important here is the actions and words of the other Frostmoon Scorns. We learn that they don't trust outsiders, and we learn about their dedication to the Moon Goddess and how they believe that she will answer and heed their prayers. Lama's story is about a question of tradition. That is, what would you do if you had the knowledge to shatter and completely flip a long-term ideal you grew up following on its head? That everything you've been doing your entire life, that all your hours of praying were merely to a god that couldn't even hear you in the first place. Do you allow your people to live in a lie? Would revealing the truth of their tradition be a negative or a positive? This is shown in a later scene where that very same sick child is near the brink of collapse, and Lauma, rather than revealing the lie that the Frostmoons are living, lets her blood be the medicine to quell the sickness, to make them believe that their prayers have been answered. The Frostmoons are quite literally physically harmed by their belief for their goddess. One, because of a mother who refuses to abandon her devotion to her goddess, and Lauma, who has to sacrifice her own blood to cure this illness, which could have been quelled much earlier. While she hasn't done anything too concrete in the story quest, I believe Columbia is the most interesting character that showed up in Nod Krai. Whether that be her constant talks about exchanges, or even her talks about who the gods will turn to, she's just ripe with so much story that is yet to be explored. From what I could guess, Columbia might go a similar route to what Araran explored in the 5.1 story quest. Identity. Her whole life, Columbia has been seen as nothing else other than the Moon Maiden, given the name Kutar by the past Frostmoon Scorns. Been seen as nothing but a goddess. It may be her wish to return to the moon comes from finally returning to where she feels the most at home, where she might finally be able to learn her true name and to have an identity of her own. While nothing is set in stone, I'm really excited to where they might go with Columbia's character. Valmina and Llama are direct parallels. Valmina, a Frostmoon scorn who got sick and tired of the isolation and mistreatment of Llama, chooses to leave, to betray and take the artifact that meant so much to them and hand it to their worst enemy. She gave up on the Frostmoon scorns. Llama is the opposite. She kept everything inside herself, never reaching out to talk to anyone about her suspicions, but even as the Frostmoon scorns continue to dive deeper and deeper into a false tradition with each passing day, she chose not to reveal the secret of fear of it tearing apart the Frostmoon scorns. While Valmina considers the Frostmoon scorns no longer her home, Llama considers them to be her only home.
축복이어야 할 찬 바람이 방황과 고통만을 남겼구나. 진실이 하늘 너머에 갇힌다. 그로 인해 길을 잃을 수는 없다. 지금 이 순간 히페르포레아의 자손이자 서리달의 사자 이름으로 거짓된 하늘이 달빛을 가릴지라도 은빛 피로 호수를 이루어 달빛을 엮으리라.
Inside the Wild Hunt, which aims to prey on the weaknesses inside of the characters, like how it exploited Aether as a figure of trust for the Traveler, it takes advantage of Llama's inner weakness. The words you hear during the attacks are what Llama fears might happen, but rather than staying on her knees, she quite literally takes a stand, that even if the moon they all prayed to was fake, should she and the Frostmoon scorns yield? No, that they should birth a new moonlight, not from the moon above, but maybe from down below. It's a pretty powerful message to me, one about tradition and the hopes of the people, that from the ashes of the old should rise a new order. And the story does well not to just focus on the black and white of everything, but rather talk about the gray in this answer. Some of the Frostmoon scorns feel betrayed, lost even. They left the scorns for good. And others have a hard time adjusting, refusing to believe what Llama said was real or just being devastated by the news. However, while that is all well and good, the problem I have with Llama's story is the in-between. While it was fun and to play and humorous thanks to Yaoda's internal dialogue, it didn't do much in building her up to this conclusion for me. It felt like Llama's development was being taken to the sidelines and brought up when it actually mattered. I would have much rather liked seeing the Scorn's living conditions, more about what they thought of outsiders, how poisonous their unwavering loyalty to their goddess could be. Instead, we got a quest to break into Fatui's base of operations. This is probably the only thing that holds Nod Krai back from being as good as Natlin for me. Natlin had Kachina, a character who evolved throughout the quest, each moment being important to her growth, and who she was as a character. But here, Llama doesn't get that development that Kachina had, not nearly to the extent. Which translates well to my next point, a reoccurring issue I had with Nod Krai. Mostly because the Flint section is basically the biggest embodiment of this trait. That being said, this quest is a lot when it comes to lore, and it's very interesting as a fan of this series, but in terms of storytelling, it's quite lackluster for me. So far, Llama is the only one who has any sort of development in her story, and not a single other character acts as a flat art character like Mulani was for Kachina, and we only have one character that grows like Kachina did, as I said, Llama. But I am holding out hope. I really hope this situation is like with Painon and Amphorius as a whole, because they have more updates to focus on in the story, and they will have development be more long-term, have each story start to progress characters like Columbia, Marinette, Flins, and even characters like Yaoda, all of which have potential to be very well written if given the time. So now that we have that all over with, let's go over my favorite moment in the entire quest, the final act. Finally, after ages of not feeling a fleeting bit of worry, Genshin has reintroduced the feeling that has been absent for so many stories. Even Natlan, which to me has been better than Nod Krai, lacked this specific aspect that it does so well. That is tension. You might be asking, why does Raiher provide more tension than the Abyss, or even the Narwhal Whale? Well, that's because Raiher has something they don't. Previously, we were constantly told how powerful of an opponent the final boss would be, or how much they ruin the lives of people in the nation. But here, with Raiher, they just have to say his name, and that's all they need to say. His presence alone changes the question from how do we beat him to how do we make sure he's never awakened in the first place. So now, Traveler and Flynn stand before Raiher, who is about to get enough of his power back to completely flatten Nod Krai at his feet. I feel scared, like genuinely worried. I don't even care if it's just 6.0. I ask, if this guy is free, what chances does the Traveler have? And this finale puts everyone to good use, using Llama's leadership, Inifra's own skills, and Yalda's aid, Flynn's and Traveler's interference with the blast, all to stop him from reviving. And despite the struggle, he is still awakened. However weakened, what stands before us is a sinner, one with enough power to crush us easily. We were lucky to be saved in time by Sandonon, and even she was lucky to have Columbia save her and us at the same time. But while the world starts to reset to normal like it always does, there's a looming thought in the back of our minds. Raiher is out there and free, and Varaka seems to want something from him. What will happen? How do we fight and beat a foe of that size and magnitude? The fact that I feel this alone makes me excited to play the next story quest. They brilliantly hit the mark for the final sequence. Something I missed so much when playing through the last couple of regions has made its return in the best way possible. So, that was that. My thoughts on Genshin's newest region. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed this story so much. I love Yalda, Llama, Flynn's, and I even gained a liking for Inefa. But overall, I was sort of underwhelmed by the story quest because of how good of an example Kachina set up in the region prior. Sort of like how I felt upon seeing Mavuika after Farina. Again, that was just my thoughts. What are yours? Or how are you enjoying Nod Krai? I would love to see your thoughts down below. Later!